Now it is clear that the hype for the new Zelda game is incredibly high. I mean, the last video I did on the Tears of the Kingdom did crazy good, and I'm glad all of you enjoyed it. And today I once again want to jump right into the story of the game, because while some think we got very little in the trailer, it actually tells us a whole lot, especially if you combine it with the others. And one of my lovely fans in the Discord server known as Metame actually shared an interesting theory with me. He showed me proof that an old villain will come back in this new Zelda game, and believe me, I was blown away. There's a good chance this will actually happen. So, who will come back? How will it affect the rest of the game? And what might happen in the game? Well, let's dive right in. Now in the new trailer we get loads of new info, and combined with the older ones you can really create a picture of what could happen in this game and what we will see. And there are a couple of returning themes that really give us a hint on what we will see in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which we will go into today. But in order to keep some sort of order in this video, I will use an interesting narrative device to cover all my points. In the trailer we see a total of 7 tears. And yes, tears, Japanese translators confirm this, and so I will talk about 7 things. 7 arguments to convince you of this theory. A theory that claims Vati, the Wind Tribe, and the Minish will return to the Zelda franchise. So, without further ado, let's begin. Alright, we will start off by looking into the Zonai situation, because I know everyone is still obsessed with them, even though they are kind of a red herring in my opinion. But what is known can be gleaned from the remains of their civilization left behind all across Hyrule Kingdom. In general, we don't know anything about them, and most people think they are actually a completely new race or faction, but personally I don't think that's the case at all. I think we have seen them before in another game, the Minish Cap. In that game we also saw a civilization that was incredibly powerful, created incredible machines, and disappeared at some point. Because after living on the surface for a long time, the tribe gained mastery over wind, and eventually even abandoned the surface world to move to a palace in the sky. And they took the wind element with them and placed it in the Palace of Winds, guarding its entrance ever since. Now the Zonai are in certain ways similar to the Wind Tribe. They disappeared as well, and now in the new game we even get to see islands floating in the sky. So it seems perfect. But I know this isn't enough for most of you, so let's go to the second point. When you look at the trailers, you can see some sort of gigantic tower, and at first I wasn't sure what it was until I looked at the Minish Cap once again. In that game you see a place known as the home of the Wind Tribe, and this place reminds me a lot of the tower we see in the trailer. Obviously it is a new version of this place, but you gotta admit it is very fitting. You can see it especially well in the 2022 trailer, and thanks to this I went back to the footage that we got in 2021. And here you can see something interesting if you look at the floor tiles. They are incredibly similar to the ones seen inside of the home of the Wind Tribe, but that's not all. Because the swirls that we see so often and are associated with the Zonais are also seen in a lot of Wind Tribe architecture. So if you take all of this into consideration, the case for the Zonai actually being the Wind Tribe or an offshoot of them becomes more and more plausible. But I bet some of you still aren't convinced, which is a good thing. Being skeptical is healthy. But luckily enough, we have only scratched the surface, and I have a lot more tricks up my sleeve. So let's move on to the third argument. Now if we take a look at the mysterious figures seen at the beginning of the new trailer, one thing I noticed was these little lines around it. And this reminds me of one thing: speed lines. Something that is used in animation to show movement visually. And if these are speed lines, then it seems like this being came from the sky down to Hyrule, just like the Minish and the Wind Tribe. This is even mentioned at the beginning of the Minish Cap in that little story cutscene. I think at this point all of you are starting to see which direction I'm going. I think the next Zelda game will have a lot of themes from the Minish Cap, and proof for this is found everywhere. From the small things to big things. So let's really get into this now. Back in the day when they were making Breath of the Wild, they had a lot of ideas, and some of these didn't make the cut, and so we never saw them. But Nintendo did show them off in all kinds of books, and even at game design presentations. One reason they even made this sequel is because they had so many ideas left and wanted to use them. And some of these concepts are already seen in the game, like a one-armed Link, a dragon head weapon, and a broken Master Sword. And there's one other concept that they wanted to add, which we could see in Tears of the Kingdom, the Minish. Breath of the Wild's director wanted to include tiny villages with tiny people in the game, and they would have given Link the ability to shrink down to their size. Now, they ended up scrapping the idea, but maybe it could return in the sequel. As you can imagine, this is another piece of evidence that supports my claims. And we all know the one villain who is associated with the Minish, Vati, the most powerful and corrupt one out there. And there's more than enough proof that he will return. So let's move on to the next point. When you look at the trailer, you can see something quite interesting near the end. Some sort of swirl. Now this could be anything. However, it is also possible that this is wind magic, which is again associated with the Wind Tribe, but also Vati. This is something we also see in the Minish Cap. Heck, it's even used multiple times in that game to get around. You can jump into them by using Rock's cape or by jumping off a ledge. And when you jump into one, Link will hold on to Aslo like a parachute, letting him glide through the air. So this could be another hint that things from that game will return in the new Breath of the Wild sequel. But I know how all of you can be, so I have more evidence. Now, if you look at the new enemies, you can see that these stone guardians are very similar to something we have seen before. The many different forms of Vati. You can even see the eye symbol all over this being, and again, they are reminiscent of Vati. You can see this especially well when you compare it to his final forms in the Minish Cap that you must defeat in order to save Hyrule. However, there's also another thing that could fit. Mazal, a gigantic stone robot guardian that appears in the Wind Ruins and was constructed by the Wind Tribe to repel intruders. If you compare this machine to the ones seen in the new and older trailers, you can see it's very similar in certain ways. So I think this is another thing that strengthens my theory. It could even be that these inspired the Sheikah to create the Guardians. Because throughout history, the Sheikah have never been expert robot or guardian craftsmen. But these are just small things. Because now, we are going to look at the strongest argument I have for all of this. This mysterious being seen at the beginning of the trailer is actually Vati, and the evidence for this is overwhelming. As soon as you see it, it's everywhere. Alright, look at this shot from Four Swords. Does something stand out? Well, in my opinion, you can see an eye symbol, but also some sort of swirls. And if you now look at the mysterious being, you can see that design-wise, it all looks very familiar. The eye in the middle of its head, the swirls and curls all along the neck area, and the eyes with 3 points above them, which are seen everywhere in the game, even on the back of Link's new shield, and at the bottom of the big door he opens in the new trailer. To be honest, no matter where you look, you see symbols, design, and stuff related to Vati, the Minish, and the Wind Tribe. These are just some examples, but I bet if you look at the trailer again, you will see even more. Heck, Link even has this Vati eye on his hip in the trailer. Just look at this flask holder. Above it is an eye symbol that is exactly the same as the one seen on the Vati mural from Four Swords. So personally, I think there's a strong connection here, and it could be possible. Sure, we don't know a whole lot about Tears of the Kingdom, but all of this cannot be a coincidence. But be sure to share your ideas down below. And if you're interested in another take on the story, then be sure to check out my other video by clicking on the screen right now or in the upper right corner. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. As you can imagine, I'm very excited for the game, and I got one other very good video idea that will be coming soon-ish. Yeah, be sure to subscribe, click the bell button, like, and tell me down below what you think, and subscribe and all that stuff, because more content is coming, and I will be reading your comments, because again, I'm very interested in your take.